maybe another year. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your interest in this session. We're going to talk about campaign grants available this autumn from the Sustainable Food Places program. For those who don't know me, my name is Sophia. I'm part of the Sustainable Food Places team. I'm Policy and Campaigns Coordinator. And there's a team of 3 of us at Sustain working on campaigns. Bella, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Bella, for those of you that haven't met me before. Nice to meet you. Yes, I'm the Local Action Officer, so I work with Sophia, helping with campaigns for Sustainable Food Places. I'll be helping with Food for the Planet and with Veg Cities and some other bits this year. Morning.
And the third element to our team is Vera Zakharov, who many of you know. She's been on maternity leave. She's recently come back. She's not yet back to her full 4 days a week. She has a bit of a sound issue this morning, so I'm not sure if she'll be able to introduce herself. But she will pop into the breakout rooms and so on later on. And also with us, we have a Sustain colleague, Ruth Westcott, who works on Food for the Planet. You'll hear from her later on. Do you want to introduce yourself, Ruth?
Hi, everyone. I'll say hello later, so I'll just give you a wave for now, but nice to see you all.
Good to see you all. You receive a lot of emails from us. Apologies for that. Sometimes it might seem a bit too much, so it's always good to see your faces. So I do have, oh, Vera is here. Do you want to say hello, introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, hello. My name is Vera Zakharov, for those that don't know, and I'm the Local Action Coordinator for Sustainable Food Places. I'm just returning from maternity leave. Should I say anything else, or my work strands?
We'll have time later on in the breakout groups. So let's start with a presentation just to kind of help me outline what we have available. And it's quite difficult to see the chat when I have the presentation on. So after each slide, if there's questions, let's not wait to the end. Feel free to interrupt, and if others can keep an eye on the chat, let's deal with questions as they come along. So the grants we have available this autumn. So we have Good Food Movement grants. I'm not going to expand a great deal on this. There was a session similar to this back in June, but just to say that we're also opening grants for Good Food Movements. I'm going to speak mostly about the campaign grants we have available, other support available, and other sources of funding. And we've just introduced the team. So just very briefly to say how many grants we have available on Good Food Movements, 10 grants available in total. And you might have noticed we increased from the amount of the grant from the previous 5,000 to 10,000, just recognizing that to be able to have an impact, we had to increase the value, and also everything is more expensive. There is a very good handbook if you're interested. It's published online on the Sustainable Food Places website. I would like to invite you all to read this guide. And as with other grants, the grant application is on your SFP dashboard. And if you would like to discuss your ideas, I would like to strongly encourage you to do so. Just get in touch with Vera if you have any further questions, any ideas you would like to discuss. We're here for you. So this is already on your dashboards. It's been there since the 23rd of September. The deadline is 21st of November. So watch these dates. But what we would like to speak to you about is campaign grants. So you previously said to us that you would like flexibility in terms of what grants you would like to apply for. That's why we have, once again, campaign grants available for Veg Cities, Food for the Planet, and Good for the Economy. But this is likely to be the last round of campaign grants. And we have 13 grants available, because once again, we thought we needed to increase the value. So we have slightly less available, but they're 7,500 each. Same dates. So watch out for the deadline of 21st of November. And who can apply? Everyone, every member of Sustainable Food Places. In terms of who can manage the grant, it doesn't have to be the food partnership. For example, there are many that don't have a legal entity, a legal status, and are not able to employ a coordinator, a campaign coordinator. So it can be an organization you work closely with, actually managing and delivering the grant. The application just has to come from the food partnership, and you have obviously to be interlinked like you do. So once again, how to apply. The grant application form is on your dashboard, and you can email me if you have any questions. So a tiny bit of detail about each campaign grant available. So Veg Cities, it's quite a well-established campaign. Many of you have had grants over the last few years. It's all about increasing the availability and consumption of veg, using all the levers you have available at a local level, and linking up with the national campaign. But we only have 2 or 3 grants available this time around. We had grants available in previous rounds. And because we have such a small amount, we would really like them to be tailored to the issues that we think are more pressing at the moment. And we would like to try something different this time around and focus on free school meals. And for 2 reasons. It's because there's quite a lot of evidence showing that children that eat a hot school meal end up eating more veg compared to packed lunches. And also, it's a very hot topic at the moment in all nations. Wales just started rolling out free school meals to infants, expanding to every child in primary school next year. It links with cost of living, and there's going to be a lot of national campaigning next year. So there's an opportunity to link things up at a local and national levels. And we have our children's food campaign at Sustain that can support you. So obviously we're not expecting you to, pay for free school meals with 7.5K. It's not about that. It's about generating evidence that this is needed at a local level. It's maybe doing a feasibility study. It's working with stakeholder groups locally to campaign for this idea at a local level, but also linking up with the movement that is starting at a national level. So we would invite everyone that is interested in this idea to get in touch with Vera and discuss it a bit more, because as I said, we only have 2 or 3 grants in total available for Veg Cities. So we don't want to generate a lot of work from your end in developing an idea that won't be successful. So we want good applications, good impactful campaigns, and we're very welcome for you to get in touch with us to discuss those ideas. And the other area where there's a lot of interest is on food growing, whether in urban areas or peri-urban areas or in more rural areas. This is something that a lot of food partnerships are working on, but we know that what the barriers are. Whether they're in terms of access to land, capital, market, skills and training. So we're looking for innovative campaign ideas on how to overcome these barriers. And again, at a Sustain level, we have a brilliant peri-urban farming campaign and a farming team that can work with you alongside our own SFP campaigns team on these. So how we'll consider your application? Match funding is not necessary, but obviously, if you manage to get match funding, this will be looked at favorably because it increases the amount of resources you have available, but also indicates buy-in from a few partners from the start. And this is a very good sign. Clear aims and objectives and impact. Again, feel free to get in touch with Vera if you want to discuss ideas. Do we have any questions in the chat, Vera or Bella?
Yeah, we've got a couple. One from Pearl asking if you mentioned that partner organisations can manage the grant for one of the campaigns, and Pearl was asking if that's the same for Good Food Movement grants.
Yes, that's the same.
Brilliant, thank you. And Sam has asked if it's only the campaign grant that this will be the last round of grants for.
Yes, so this is likely to be the last round for both campaigns and Good Food Movements grants. There will be other grants available from the program. For example, on Ready, there might be other grants available for campaigns and Good Food Movements. Yeah, this is very likely to be the last one. But we are covering other sources of funding for your great ideas later on. And Ruth is going to talk about funding for Food for the Planet that is coming from a different funding pot at Sustain. So it's not the end. Are there any more questions coming up that we can address now?
None that I can see.
Good, thank you. Moving on. So Food for the Planet. So we started this campaign 2 years ago now. And it's all about reducing the environmental impact of food on our planet. A lot of food partnerships are running local campaigns. It's going quite well, but again, we have 2 or 3 grants available in total in this round. And because we've been actually making some progress in this whole difficult area of less and better meat, we would like it that these 2 or 3 grants we have available to be on this theme. And the expectation is that campaigns will register on the Food for the Planet website, and councils use the toolkit, the Every Mouthful Counts toolkit, and start indicating what areas the council is actively working on. So there's a clear expectation that Food Partnership Council work closely on this campaign. Again, we'll consider your application in much the same way, whether there's match funding, if there's clear aims and objectives, and your overall impact. And here, again, I strongly encourage you to get in touch with Bella if you want to discuss campaign ideas. As I said before, there will be other funding available for Food for the Planet later in the year from a different pot of funding we have available at Sustain. Ruth, would you like to cover that now?
Yeah, I certainly can do. It sort of makes sense to flow from one to the other. Yeah, okay, great. I'll just share my screen. So apologies if this is just a bit messy for a second. Okay, slideshow. All right, can you see? I'm sorry, that was a bit messy. Can you hear? First of all, Bella, can you put your thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Great. Okay, right. Well, just to give you a very quick bit of background, the Food for the Planet campaign is a collaborative campaign between Sustainable Food Places and Sustain. And Sophia and Bella have been working on the sort of Sustainable Food Places side. And at the same time, complementary to that, I work Sustain running the Sustainable Food Places campaign and have like a separate pot of funding, which we managed to get to campaign on Food for the Planet. And as part of that, we've also got some money to give out as small grants. And, you know, we want to use the Sustainable Food Places network as recipients of this grant and pioneers for our local campaigns. So we gave out 10 grants over 2022, and we have another 10 grants to give out over 2023. The amounts are £5,000, so they're a little bit less, unfortunately, but yeah, didn't know about inflation at the time, unfortunately, but perhaps our expectations, you know, match your expectations to what we can fund. We're going to be launching them in about November. So, you know, you've got a couple of months. The questions in the application form will be essentially be the same. And what we'll probably do is just allow you, if you're applying for a Food for the Planet grant through Sustainable Food Places, to just send that grant to us if you want to apply for both. So we will work together to make sure that you're not filling in an application form twice. So in terms of who can apply for these grants, Sustainable Food Partnerships, or as Sophia said, you don't actually have to be a formalised food partnership yet, or you can, you know, other organisations can apply. You can be a local authority or a local community or campaign group. And there are 4 priorities that we're interested in particularly supporting through these grants. The first is empowering groups and communities that are marginalised to campaign for food climate justice and to tackle racial injustice in the food system. Now, obviously, that sounds like it's quite open and it's quite like a big issue. But one thing that you might think about is perhaps working on fringe farming and making sure that the most marginalised communities have access to land for food growing and production, or making sure that people's cultural needs are met through food in a way which is also tackling the climate and nature emergency. So we're a bit open to ideas on that one, but yeah, anything that's looking at tackling injustice and racism, really welcome. The second is procurement will be the hill that we die on. So it's more about procurement, anything that's working to get more climate friendly food in the public sector, whether it's whether it's school meals, it could be the public sector that's not controlled by the council, if that's kind of easier, if you feel that that might be an easier win. I won't go on about it too much because Sophia mentioned procurement. Yeah, it's fair to say we're both really keen to see applications working on procurement. The third is promotions and advertising for climate damaging food. So we're interested in looking for people that want to implement restrictions on banning the most climate damaging food. We're already funding this year a few campaigns on this, which are working behind the scenes, nothing in public yet, but to develop what might be a climate friendly food advertising policy. So we're really interested in people that might want to join that cohort or carry on with that campaigning, especially if, for example, you're working on a healthy food advertising policy with our colleague Fran, and you want to tag climate change onto that, or if you just want to start from scratch. And then finally, we have a bit of a new campaign up our sleeve, which is about the incredibly exciting topic of planning. We want to look for councils that might want to try to implement new planning policy, which would essentially outlaw the council saying yes to new factory farms. So it's a new campaign, so it's fair to say that the beginning work, we would have relatively low expectations of what could be achieved. We're not expecting a council to adopt a new policy, you know, during the course of this campaign or anything. It's more about how a council might do this, some research, understanding what the barriers within a council might be, and thinking about how it could work as a campaign, which it would be a bit of development as much as it would be campaigning. And then, as Sophia said, there would be an expectation across all campaigns that you'd be registering and logging actions on our Every Mouthful Counts toolkit to make sure that councils are publicly recording the actions that they're taking. All right, I'll leave it there. I hope I haven't talked too much, but any questions, Bella?
Yes, one. We've got a couple that are more general, but then we've got a couple for Food for the Planet. So Lizzie's just asked, do you have any definitions and guidance on climate damaging food and climate friendly, as these definitions are controversial and complex?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I would really recommend, I'll drop a link into that handbook that Sophia mentioned, which talks through our sort of definition. Obviously, we recognise that it's controversial, and people come to this issue with a lot of assumptions, especially about meat. So we're looking to make radical and significant change, but you have to do that in a way which is going to be acceptable to the audience that you're working with. So it's partly about messaging, and it's partly about understanding the right asks for the right audience, which we can help you with. We've been working on this stuff for a while, but yeah, the definition, I mean, broadly, it's more veg, more pulses, more a localized food system. So buying more local, supporting small enterprises, and a less and better approach to meat. We don't say no meat, although meat-free days and less meat is certainly something which we encourage. All right, Bella, does that hope that?
Yeah, thanks, Ruth. That's great. There's a question from Emma, which I think you've covered now. She asked if the other Food for the Planet funding, so yours, would be for the same theme. I think you've covered what the topics will be. Emma, if I'm wrong, send me a message in the chat and we can ask another question. Carolyn's asked quite a specific question that might be best saved for the breakout rooms. Carolyn, we're going to have breakout rooms for each of the different campaign grants, and Ruth will be doing the Food for the Planet one, so it might be good to discuss that in there. If you're not planning on going to that breakout room and want this question to be answered publicly, then feel free to unmute now. Okay. And
hi, sorry, I
hi.
will go to the breakout room. I'll just put my camera on. Sorry, I will go to the breakout room, but I don't mind asking now. But if time is an essence, then I'll save it.
I'll quickly say the question, Carolyn, and then I'll let Ruth decide whether that's best for or like if she wants to address it for everyone. So thank you. So in Fife, we're trying to bring more farmers to our Farm to Fork to Farm group, and would like to advertise to gain more members. We also want to engage them on our draft food strategy for Food for the Planet messages and actions. Would this be suitable?
Yeah, definitely. I think what would be great is something like, just broadly, something like a policy that the council could adopt, which would support good farming, but would also specifically crack terrible farming. I think we also need to do something that goes beyond just encouraging and supporting the best, which says is a council position saying specifically we don't recognise industrialised like animal factories as farming, and that needs to stop. So there'd need to be an element of that in it, because that's really it's industrialised pig and chicken farms that are really the crisis in climate change that we need to crack. So it would need to have something about that in it, but it could be both for sure.
We're looking to have more climate friendly food production through the reduction of pesticides and fertilizers. So we're working with National Farmers Union, and hopefully we'll bring Scottish Government in to support that through the consultation around the agricultural bill in Scotland. But we need to be able to support our farmers in Fife as part of our food strategy. We need to actually get more farmers to the table. We have a lot of organic farmers that are working with us, but they are already on that journey. We need to work with those that are not on the journey, but actually not wrap their knuckles in a way to encourage them to come to the table. Because we know that the changeover for yields, etc., blah, 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 and soil health is going to take a number of years. So they need supporting in that, but it's how to get them to the table to have those discussions and finding out we have to do a campaign to try and do that. So.
Thanks, Carolyn. That's really interesting. I'll be jealous to miss out on that conversation in the breakout rooms for sure. So I'll look forward to hearing all about it. We've got one more question from Sam, which is the planning element very specifically re the factory farm issues, or can it be broader?
Yeah, it could be broader, but let's have a chat I'm happy to pick up with you outside the meeting, actually, if you've got an idea, which isn't factory farms, but it could be a good one for a campaign. Factory farms is the really big issue. It's polluting waterways. It's a crack in because it's the worst. It's the worst bit. That's the bit that we really need to crack. So I think if you can make a very good case for why this is really important, then I encourage you to do so. But yeah, mega farms are getting planning permission and getting nodded through by councils left, right and centre, especially in poorer areas, and they are really what is causing our climate from our greenhouse gas emissions from farming to continue to rise, even though other areas of our emissions are falling, and that is industrial factory farming which is doing that. So that's the nut we need to crack, really. So but yeah, very happy to have a chat about it.
Thank you, Ruth. I've spotted another question in the chat from Anya. I'm just going to read it out. Can you let me know if we can apply for a second round of funding for the same campaign to develop an existing funding project, for example, Batch Cities to the next stage? Yes, this is perfectly fine. If it fits with the campaign priorities that outlined above, yes, you can. And I think that's all in terms of questions in the chat. Unless I missed anything, let me know. All right, so moving on, I'm going to share my screen again to continue the presentation and to cover the last campaign for which we have grants available. So this is a new area of work and something that we've really started to develop after COVID and after the impact it had on a lot of the good food enterprises that you work with at a local level. And for those that worked with Ren, this was her baby. This is what she developed during COVID. She's done a lot of work. She did surveys to study the impact on food enterprises. There was a report outlining what came out of that. There were webinars outlining government funding available to enterprises and so on. So we do want to continue that work. It's one of the key issues in the SFP program. And this is really about help promoting good food jobs, good food enterprises as part of a diverse local food economy. And we have a bit of a structure and framework for how this can be done at a local level through campaigns. So we have 7 grants or more available because it's a new area. It's the first time we have grants available for this area of work. So we wanted to prioritize this a little bit. And as I said, we structured the work that you can do under a campaign in 3 areas, what we call celebratory, strategic, or targeted. And I'll go into a bit more detail later on about these areas. And we'll carry on the discussion in the breakout group later on if you want to discuss your ideas. So I would encourage you to listen to a campaigns breakfast we had back in July this year, where we talked a little bit about these 3 ideas. We had presentations from pilot campaigns that are taking place in Plymouth and in the Northeast. And there's a document that includes campaign guidance, which is also available on your dashboard. So I would like to encourage you to have a look at those 2 elements as well. We'll consider your application in very much the same way as we look at Batch Cities Food for the Planet applications, whether you succeeded in getting match funding for your campaign, clear aims and objectives and impacts. And for this one, if you want to discuss your ideas, please get in touch with me. So a bit more on these 3 three elements of local campaigns. So what we call the celebratory element is really a campaign to showcase and celebrate your network of good food enterprises, the innovations they're doing, what they're doing to increase access to healthy and sustainable food, and how you're offering communities the opportunity to become more involved in the local food system and to become active food citizens. What we call the strategic element is really what makes a campaign, as opposed to a project. So this is about, and the definition of campaign is very much like a series of steps to achieve a final goal, whether there's a change in policy or a change in a practice. This is really what makes a campaign. So this is around laying the seeds for continuing this work beyond the 1 year of activity. And this is really about seeking the financial sustainability for good food enterprises at a local level. So whether this is laying the ground, for example, in mapping food enterprises in your region, understand what infrastructure and funding is needed, and starting to build those networks and spheres of influence to achieve this long-term change. So we don't expect you to work on all these three elements, but I would say the strategic pillar is one that you will need to address in one way or the other. It might be on its own or in conjunction with another one. And the last pillar is targeted activity. So you might want to work with a sector or subsector of enterprises on a single issue. I don't know, this might be around sourcing more local food from local farmers. It might be around a campaign to promote real living wage in your area or anything like that. So a few examples that you might consider under each area, and the list is not exhaustive. We're open to your ideas. So this could be around showcasing good work that is happening at a local level, sharing stories about good food enterprises through case studies, photo stories, films, meet the producer type events. And some of you already have a lot of experience with this. So how could you build on these stories and networks? Building networks or working groups of good food enterprises, develop more peer-to-peer learning, run celebratory events, think of food trails. There's quite an interest in food trails at the moment. There were a few during the last summer. Think of awards programs. Again, some food partnerships already have their own awards programs and run it successfully. So you could start something in your area. And create ways for local communities to be proactively involved in the good food economy. So these are just examples of activity that you could run under this pillar. And let's not forget, it's all about getting food on the local economic agenda and thinking about the long-term sustainability of this pillar of work. So activity you might consider under this strategic pillar. You can do a health check, state of the sector, to understand what's going on in your area as kind of building block for what you're going to do next. You can build a roadmap for the future, build a case, who you need to influence, what infrastructure needs to be invested in, set a campaign target for your area. And then this first year is kind of piloting that target and building on it over subsequent years. Or it might be around working with local stakeholders to develop projects that align with leveling up agenda, and you can apply for funding under existing government funding streams. Maybe started to build a local coalition. And what we are developing at a national level, and you might have heard of this idea already, but what we are doing centrally at Sustain is developing we started with the idea of a local declaration, but I think we're going to call it a roadmap or a plan of action instead, similar to other declarations. So it's a plan of action for a good food economy in a cost of living crisis. So it's something we're going to invite local councils, but not exclusively local councils, to sign up to. We're going to ask them to sign up to action to achieve a good food economy at a local level. And action will include, to a degree, direct support and promotion of good food enterprises, but we'll also consider other elements, like we need to recognize that wages in the sector are way too low, and we need to give everyone fair, decent wages. There's a recognition that if we don't protect incomes, then people won't have money to spend in their local good food enterprises. So we need to look at this with a broader lens, and think of cash first approaches and so on. So this is something we're developing at a national level. And if you're interested in running a local campaign, so we are hoping that you will be one of the first local area to trial this local declaration, local roadmap. And obviously, if you're interested in developing it with us, get in touch. And the final area of action is what we call the targeted approach. So working with a sector or subset of enterprises on a project to move to a more resilient sector, or to increase access to healthy and affordable food. So this is where you might choose to work with your local market, an existing market, or set up a new market in your area. Why not? Or you might work with a subset of retailers and work with them to increase access to healthy and affordable food. For example, give them training on how to sell more fruit and veg, which is always tricky in a retail environment. Or you could work with emerging food hubs in your area. Or, as I mentioned before, you might do a local campaign trying to increase the number of businesses paying the real living wage at a local level. So, not exhaustive ideas. We're always open to your own ideas and building on what you've started already. Right, do we have any questions coming up in the chat?
Yeah, we've got a few. So Pearl has asked, if you have an idea that could fit into two categories, e.g. good food movement and economy, is it worth applying for both? So not to get double funding, but to maximise your chances of getting some funding.
I can't see why not, if it kind of fits with the objectives of both strands, because I do realize there are overlaps. I think the important thing in the good food economy strand is that strategic element that makes, that's why it's a campaign and not a project. It's the long-term sustainability of this strand, like what how you are working to achieve financial sustainability and support for good food enterprises to continue on the long run and not just during the duration of the campaign.
And Vera's also suggested it might be helpful to run it by us if you've got a specific project in mind. So maybe just get in touch with us to check the specifics.
Precisely. Yeah.
Thanks, Vera. And Vanessa has asked if it's possible to apply for less than 5K of funding.
Yes, if you have something in mind that costs less. That never happened before, I have to say, that you ask for less than the total we have available, but I can't see why not.
Thank you. And Emma has asked, what's the project delivery timelines for the grants?
So we are flexible, because that's another thing that a lot of you have mentioned before, that you would like flexibility in terms of time available to deliver. So typically, you know, most people go for a year, but if you want to extend it to 18 months, you're more than welcome to.
And just so everyone knows, Ruth's put in the chat, answering on behalf of the Food for the Planet grants from Sustain, that yes, you can apply for less than 5k, and we would expect the cash to be spent within a year, but timings are flexible as well. I think that's all the questions we've got in the chat at the minute.
Thank you. So again, do stay for the breakout groups if you want to discuss your ideas further. So we have just a few more slides before we break out into these discussions, because I would like to include a mention to other campaign support we have available. It's not just about the grant money. So for those, I think everyone should be aware about PeerLink at the moment. It's a brilliant tool. It's available on your dashboard, and this is it offers peer-to-peer support for those in the network. So, and this is available for campaigns. It's not just about I don't know, governance of food partnership or the processes. It's available for campaigns. So if you're working on a campaign and you know of someone else that is doing a brilliant job, you can use PeerLink to book a bit of time with the campaign coordinator or the partnership coordinator and learn from them. And that means that your time and their time is paid. And if you need to visit them, do a site visit, that can also be paid. We have our regular campaign breakfast sessions. We've been holding them once a month or thereabouts. And these are workshops on campaign issues. And our next session is on the 26th of October on why and how to engage with MPs. But we've done campaigns breakfast on everything under the sun, from less and better meat to planning a few years ago, to veg cities related themes, to ultra processed food, you name it. So we're always open to themes for future campaigns breakfasts. Thematic webinars on issues that are raised by the network and responding to needs from the network. So we know cost of living is on everyone's mind. So we're holding a webinar on the 7th of November, pulling in action by local food partnerships. But this is also an opportunity to hear from you regarding on what should be our role as a network on this issue, and what sort of asks we should take to national policymakers. Other type of support is like general campaign support. This includes one-to-one. So you're always welcome to come to a member of our team to discuss your needs. We do have peer-to-peer support group. So these are meetings that happen on a regular basis for everyone running a campaign. We already run these regular meetings for everyone running a Veg Cities or a Food for the Planet campaign. There's a meeting tomorrow for everyone running a Food for the Planet campaign that Bella is putting together. And I hope to set up a similar structure for everyone running a Good Food Economy campaign. So these are spaces to share what's been happening in your area at a national level, to flag action that we need to follow up on, etc. We have our campaign websites and newsletters. I think most of you are aware, but a reminder to browse and look at all the resources that are available there. Rise Up List, again, I think everyone is aware, but a brilliant tool to fire a quick question and have answers from colleagues, like-minded people from all over the country with their experiences. And the biggest resource is colleagues, because we have a lot of knowledge among ourselves. So Rise Up and your SFP team members, we're here for you. Any more questions coming up in the chat before we move on to other funding available?
Just one from Sam asking when all the information relating to these grants will be available on the assets page. Do you mean when the applications will open, Sam?
So if it is, are we talking about application forms and guidance that is already available on your SFP dashboard? So every partnership coordinator should have access to a private area on the Sustainable Food Places website. So if you go to that area, application form, guidance documents are there. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, I encourage you to get in touch with one of us and we can guide you.
And for the Sustain grants, Ruth's aiming for the info to be available later this month and applications will open in November.
I think we'll send something around to SFP members and via the Rise Up list when those applications are open in November.
That's all the questions for now.
Right, moving on. Bella, would you like to cover other sources of funding, because you've been doing a lot of digging over the last month? Thank you.
Yes, I won't go on for too long because I think these slides will be most helpful potentially when we send them around later, because they've got all the hyperlinks to these other grants in there. Yeah, we've just compiled a few other options for sources of funding just in case. So a big one I would flag is National Lottery Community Fund. They've got loads of grants, loads of different sizes that cover all different nations within the UK and have rolling deadlines, so you can sort of apply when suits you. So I've listed the main ones here that look like they would be relevant for these sort of projects. And if we go on to the next slide, I would say with the National Lottery, it might be slightly less campaign focused and more project focused. So that's something to bear in mind. Here I've just compiled a few other suggestions of smaller grant giving bodies that give out similar size funds, also have sort of rolling deadlines that are reviewed across different periods through the year, that might be worth looking into, that are relevant to the sort of work that you might be doing. But the main piece of advice I would suggest is actually going to this website I've put at the bottom, grantsonline.org.uk, and you can sign up to their newsletter, and they send around, I think, monthly lists of grants where they sort of have a document that breaks down deadlines and what sort of what the funding is available for. So that's a really useful resource just to keep tabs on anything that might be out there. And they don't just put the sort of big ones with rolling deadlines, they keep you up to date with ones that might have deadlines coming up as well. So I'll probably leave it there. I don't think there's any value in me going into any detail on these, but we'll send the slides around afterwards so you can look into those.
Thank you for that. So if there aren't any more general questions, I think we can go into the breakout rooms, and you can choose which group you would like to join based on what campaign you're planning on applying to. One here. Well, I hope everyone had an interesting discussion, or similar to what we had in the Good Food Economy group. Very good to hear your ideas. But if there are general questions that you couldn't find an answer for in your breakout group, this is the space for it. We still have a few minutes left. Anything coming out from your group, Bella or Ruth?
Yeah, we had a really good chat. In fact, we got cut off a bit. I just wonder whether, yeah, if there might be stuff that we didn't manage to cover. So just drop me an email if you fancy a quick chat about a campaign, and we can talk through it if it would help with your application or whatever. I'm really happy to have more chats. Thanks.
Yeah, and same in my group. There were a few people that didn't have the opportunity to talk about their campaign idea, but we are here if you want to pop an email, and we'll find a time to speak to you.
There was definitely a lot of interest. Oh, sorry, maybe I'll just quickly raise it, but there was definitely a lot of interest in the Veg Cities room around the kind of food growing strand of work, and sort of how to nest that within the sort of Veg Cities priorities. So that was something that was coming up a lot, but Lauren was in the room and has her hand raised, so I think it would be good to hear from her more specifically.
I was going to ask a question about another thing. Sorry, no. But it is kind of to do, it's not really to do with growing, it's more to do with the I suppose the Food for the Planet thing, and it's just like the implementation of restrictions for climate damaging food. In our area, we've got some food hubs being created, and they want to get them set up and going by November. And one of the things is that potentially there's going to be a lot of although like a lot of fast food and not necessarily coming from a localized system, although there's potentially local food from that, and just trying to kind of ensure that food does get out there. But I wondered if there was any information from any of you kind of actually going, if you're going to be spending that money, can we try and see if that goes there? I'm not sure if I've put that out clearly enough there, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. The council is spending money on junk food for
No, not necessarily. They are putting it out to tender, sort of, to create warm hubs across thing, but they've got to be set up and running in by November. But kind of seeing how this worked, kind of working frontline throughout the whole of COVID. It's just ensuring that actually some of these choices that maybe potentially these individual organizations making are the best they can be in the situation.
Yeah.
But then supporting our council to kind of make those decisions in the correct way, which doesn't restrict food getting out there, but enables good decisions to be made. But I'm really aware that this is it's going to happen in the next kind of month or so. And it's just, if there's anything now that's information out there we can use to kind of support that.
There are some absolutely amazing councils and groups that have done really good transition from to community to it's an SFP Rise Up perfect question, that one, because there's lots of places that are doing it really, really well, that can talk about like how the council sets certain standards of what food would be acceptable, and like differential pricing, making large businesses that are sort of getting rid of their surplus pay so that they can support and subsidize fruit and veg, like lots of different models that have worked in different areas. I would put it on the SFP Rise Up list. It sounds like a perfect one for that, I think. Yeah, but it's certainly something, if you were campaigning to make that better, it's something that could work as a campaign for sure. Yeah.
Caroline, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, I was in the Food for the Planet one, but I also wanted to be in the food economy one. My question is on that really. We have hopefully starting in 2023 a mapping exercise on what food we have in Fife. And it's basically linked to procurement. We need to know what's out there to know what we can buy from a local food perspective and using the public path. The mapping exercises probably will be about a 2-year program all in all. And it will be in phases, and it may have multiple consultants and partners gathering that data. So my question is, can we apply for funding for mapping as part of a larger project? And does that money have to, can it be used for consultants? Can it be, or does it need to go for communities? Or, you know, how can that money be spent if we apply for the mapping?
So I think the what we would like to get to with these good food economy grants is that strategic element, is that this is not just seen as a project with, you know, a start, a middle, and end, and then it's over. Is because we realize that, you know, our aims are ambitious. You won't get there in 1 year, but hopefully through this campaign grant, you can start something that will help you achieve your long-term aims through a continuation of that activity. Therefore, an exercise like mapping is really useful to set the baseline and to, as a first step for what you're trying to achieve, to bring stakeholders on board, to diversify your streams of funding, to guarantee the long-term funding of this strand, etc. And ideally, the money would go to a local campaign coordinator. But there's nothing stopping you to use that money for, you know, third-party costs or for a consultant. But yeah, it's ultimately we will judge the applications by, you know, their impact and what impact you can generate during the course of the campaign, and how that will set you closer to your ultimate aims.
Yeah, thank you.
So there's quite a flexibility in terms of how you can spend the grant as well.
I mean, this is an action within our draft strategy action plan, to actually get base data to understand what the gaps and opportunities are for increasing local food purchasing through procurement, and also for trade. So we're linked into the Big Move 9 as well, which is the 6 councils from Edinburgh down to the borders and to Tayside. And Fife is looking to be a pilot to start this kind of new type of data collection, to look at, you know, that will then link into what we need for distribution, storage, food security, moving forward with climate change. So yeah, it's definitely part of our strategic plan, but it's collecting the base data. But I just wanted to check that it would be possible to use within a phased approach for potential third-party costs. But thank you, that sounds good.
Right, any more questions? Otherwise, as we've said before, do get in touch with one of us, depending on what campaign idea you would like to explore. Yeah, we're here to discuss ideas with you guys. Right. Thank you very much, everyone that stayed until the end. And we'll be in touch. We'll send you the presentation so that you have all the links and information that we presented today, and speak to you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.